everybody, and Happy New Year from Park House. From now on I'll be keeping a close eye on the pond, this one and the other small fountain, because at this time of year the frogs become, if it's mild, certainly in this part of the world, from January onwards we should see frogs in the pond. They'll be popping their head out between the duckweed and they'll be waiting for a mate. So if I keep a close eye, we might see some frogs, or an abundance of frogs, frolicking around in the pond. And then after that, at some stage, probably not for a little while yet, but we should see some frog spawn. And that's a great way to get excited about the new season, about the spring, the summer, and the gardening season to come. So I got something for Christmas, which makes filming a little bit easier than it was. I can extend it up here and I can look at a height, look over the wall, swing around very fast. And the reason why is because I got a selfie stick, which is also a tripod, which means I can do this. To myself, and I can also do this. Or I can set it up to do this. This is an arum lily and it's called Arum italicum, and the variety that has the lovely silver veins is called maculatum. It's also known as lords and ladies, and the amazing thing about this is it's up and looking really fresh in January. This will be followed by a beautiful lily flower which will have a kind of a curled or rolled around flower with a spathe like male and female part in the middle, and it's a great signifier that spring is on the way. So we've got this beautiful new growth. Lots of leaves for everybody to get rid of. We need to do a lot of raking and sweeping when you get back, guys. Daffodils are really advanced coming up now. No sign of any flowers just yet, but that's okay. I never get tired of walking this path, getting in among the plants and among nature. This is a bit bizarre here. It's definitely the wrong time of the year for this to be happening. It's a new flower in a hydrangea, which shouldn't be happening till probably May, suppose, of next year. But nature does funny things. This is a tree called Garrya elliptica, and it has these lovely, what you call racemes, hanging flowers, hanging strings of flowers at this time of year. And they're hanging because they are pollinated by the wind rather than by a pollinating insect. And they're really attractive, particularly from a distance when you can see a lot of it together. And traditionally in a woodland area like this, you see the first signs of spring, because when the leaves come off the trees, there's an opportunity for flowers to start to grow and produce foliage and a flower before the leaves come back on the trees. So you will sometimes see quite a lot of spring growth, including nettles. In an area like this. And some of the first of them here are this guy here. It's not in flower yet, but this is wild garlic, and if you crush that in your hands, you can smell the garlicky, oniony smell from it, and that will make a great pesto. You can take the leaves off this, and you can also take the small garlicky root. If I can have a look, the little garlicky roots like this, if they're washed, you can get them into a mortar and pestle and turn them into a pesto. So I was hoping, as I came up here, there would be more of these in flower. This is the hellebore, or the Christmas rose, and surprisingly these ones aren't in flower, but my own hellebores at home are absolutely covered in flowers. I think there'll be some more down here. This plant flowers in winter. It has quite a nice scent from it, like a lot of its relations. It is a viburnum, and this particular variety is called Tynus. And it's a big one, but you can get a smaller variety called Eve Price. And another flower which is out at this time of year is on the false castor oil plant, or Fatsia japonica, and it's a relation of this ivy on the ground, and as a result it has flowers a little bit like ivy when ivy grows up onto a wall and becomes mature. Quite similar to the Fatsia is the common ivy, Heterohelix, which is an Irish ground ivy. Something interesting here every single year. This is a weed, this is a bit of a brute, but in this place here it's actually quite nice. And it's in flower now at the moment, and if you were here you would smell it. It is winter heliotrope, and winter heliotrope has a really strong smell of marzipan. If you had some Christmas cake and it had marzipan on it, you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's beautiful flowers at this time of year. This is a little cyclamen that just popped up here at the base of the laurel, and it's quite pretty. Cyclamens are great for this time of year. If they're in a sheltered position, they'll produce lovely flowers like this. I think we need to get a lot more of them, to be honest with you, around the site. And people are always fascinated to see a rose flowering around Christmas or early in the new year. But it is kind of common, to be honest with you, to see a rose in flower. at this time of year, particularly when it's mild. But it's still a lovely, welcome thing to see. And this hellebore, which is, I think it's Argutifolius, or it could be Helleborus foetidissima. But this is just starting to produce these lovely greeny, limey coloured flowers on it at this time of year. And another hellebore that's starting to flower here. And if you look at the leaves on this is actually what you call a blight, like potato blight or box blight or any of those things. They are an airborne disease, but it's quite common to see this on the hellebores. And what it's suggested you do is to remove all of the outer leaves, leaving you just with the inner leaves and the flowers, for two reasons. It stops the spread of blight, but it also allows you to see the flowers a little bit more clearly at this time of year. And who wouldn't want to see a beautiful flower like that? This is Mahonia charity, and this is one of the flowers that the bees really love. Even in December and January, the bees come out from their semi-hibernation to when the weather is mild, to get some valuable nectar to keep them going through the winter when the stores are growing low in the hive. So you'll see the bees on this in some of the good weather, and it has a beautiful scent as well. It's a fresh kind of citrusy. I'll have to sniff it again. It's got a very fresh smell to it. This hellebore is definitely Argutifolius, and it's got those lovely lime coloured flowers here and the spiny edged leaves. Quite a nice plant. And a lovely fresh growth at this time of year on January 5th. And sometimes you think of these cherry trees as a spring plant. Well, this one is definitely a winter and an autumn one, but it's telling us that spring is going to come soon, and hope springs eternal. As you can see, it's got beautiful buds and blossoms. It's Prunus subertella autumnalis rosea, so that's a big mouthful of a plant, but it's an autumn flowered or a winter flowered cherry tree. And here's a little surprise for you, a tiny small daffodil or narcissus. I don't know what this variety is. I was going to say cheerfulness, but I'm not really sure. It definitely makes me feel cheerful to see this on the 5th of January in Park House. And funnily enough, it's not the first one to flower. This one here is already finished flowering, which is bizarre on the 5th of January. This Mahonia charity is only just coming into flower. We had a look at one that was already in flower. But all through January and probably into February with this one here, it will be in flower, and then it'll be followed by these lovely berries, which are technically edible. They're known as the Oregon grape, but they're nothing particularly special to eat. And just across from it here, we have something else in flower, and this has quite a nice scent. And it's another viburnum, but it's a deciduous variety, meaning that it loses its leaves. And this has probably been in flower for a lot of the autumn time. But it's scented, it's a pinky white, white with pink tinges, and It's known as Viburnum bodnantense. Strange name, but it's a spring flowered or winter flowered viburnum. So as we walk around and look at all the beautiful hellebores, we realise that these are an absolute star at this time of year. They're really nice and in flower, a pretty looking flower this time of year, and really good botanically as well if we were trying to explain how the male and the female parts are. If you remember that from anyone who's done the plant science module already, you can see very clearly the stamens on the outside, and then as they open out further you can start to see a stigma style in the ovary, which is the carpel or the female part of the plant. So they're really good for demonstration of the botanical parts, the reproductive parts of the flower. Moving inside the lovely tidy glass house, we can see that nearly all times a year, a bit like gorse. They say gorse, which is the plant that grows outside with the lovely yellow flowers up in the mountains and in the countryside, it has a smell of coconut, just like gorse. They say with gorse is out of flower when kissing's out of fashion. Well, the Peruvian lily here is the same. It's never out of flower, at least in this glass house, and that's what makes it a brilliant cut flower commercially, because if it's always in flower, it's always producing something that's worth money. And that's the case with these plants, even though they're here a long time and we don't really look after them well. Ashley potted up these little trefoil, bird's foot trefoil, just before Christmas, potted them on into larger pots, and also the oxeye daisy. And you can see already they're actually really starting to benefit and grow on this bench here. The heat is not turned on, but when I look at these benches it reminds me that very soon we'll be doing a little bit of planning, as I mentioned in the email, for springtime by sowing some seeds, and over the next couple of weeks we'll be deciding on what we want to grow for this year, which is really exciting, thinking about the coming season for horticulturists. And these are more lovely hellebores. As I say, these are in abundance. Look at the amount of buds on these. These are crazy. And they'll flower between now and Easter. And some of them are known as the Christmas rose, and others are known as the Lenten rose. Because some of them flower very early, like around Christmas, and some of them flower into Lent, which is the time before Easter. And at the edge of the pond we have things again flowering out of season, like these wallflowers. But these are into their second year, so they probably are just starting to do that second year time of the spring. In this little spot we've got more of those lovely hellebores, and alongside it we've got this dogwood, which has beautiful red and orange and yellow stems, and this one is called Midwinter Fire. So it's Cornus Midwinter Fire, and it's really attractive at this time of year, particularly if we had a few of them and it was kind of clump planted.